says to the people of Israel, but you know personally that this is just as relevant for you and I. No one is exempt as the children of God from this very promise that God makes us and this command that he gives us. This is what God says in Isaiah 41:9 and 10. He says, I took you from the ends of the earth, and from its farthest corners I called you. And I said that you're my servant. And then he says this, he says, I have chosen you. That's an incredible promise from God. And then he says, and I not only have chosen you, but I've not rejected you. So past establishing the fact that we are his servants, he's our God, that he, as the God of this universe, is always with us, he then gives us this command. Listen to this, church. He says, so, establishing who he is, since he is who he is, and we are who we are, God says, so, do not fear. Now that's not a suggestion from God. That is a command from God. So tonight, we find hope that God commands his children to not fear. Now, God doesn't say, out of all your different options, one that you might want to consider is not being afraid. God tells you and I right here that whatever we're facing in our world, whatever storm is coming our way, whatever moment seems to be bigger than us, it's not bigger than him. And he makes this command, do not fear. Now, I know some of y'all are clapping and you're like, woohoo! But some of y'all are looking at me and you're like, are you kidding me? After all that we've been through as a state, after all that we have been, living in the last few days, you come out here, David Nassar, with a command from God. You have the audacity to say, do not fear. Yes. And maybe, just maybe somebody here really, really resonates with what comes right after that. Because what comes right after do not fear, honestly, is a comma. This is a comma moment right now. Anybody else get a command from God tonight that says do not fear? And right after that I see comma and I want to circle it and go, put my name on top of that comma right now. Anybody else here do not fear and see that comma and go, I need a comma right now. Because for some of you, honestly, the storm didn't start this Wednesday morning. For some of you, the storm started a long, long time ago. It wasn't like statewide. Some of you, as a body, not as a body called Cullman, but as a body, you've been going through the storm of cancer. Some of you have been going through the storm of divorce. Some of you have a prodigal child, and every night you go to bed and you wonder whether the cops are going to call and say your child isn't going to come home because he died or she died of a drug overdose. And you've been in the middle of a storm, and God tonight, in the middle of a moment of hope, wants to say to you, wants to command you to not fear. And you're like, are you kidding me? Put a comma right there, put my name on it, because I got some fear issues in my life. Anybody else here just go, man, it's a whole lot more than trees coming down. There's all kinds of stuff coming down in my life. Anybody else looked around and realized that in America, right now, people want you dead outside this world just because you're an American? Anybody ever thought about that? Anybody else thought about the reality that the economy is already in a massive storm? Anybody else want to think about the reality that right now, in the world that we live in, we have such a false sense of security when we look to the wrong people to try to protect us? Anybody been to the airport and seen the lady in front of me? I'm from Iran, and they'll have like this 80-year-old lady that don't mess with. They're like messing with her nail clippers, and I'm like, profile me. I look like the guy you need to concentrate on. I'm the Middle Eastern guy. And in the middle of that moment, you realize, as well as they intend to be our form of security, that we have a lot to fear around us. I don't know about you, but I've got all kinds of storms that started way before last week. I mean, in the last year of my life, there's been a lot of comma moments when God says, do not fear. And I'm like, are you kidding me, God? Are you kidding me? I mean, about a year and a half ago, I would look back at this verse and I'd go, okay, amen, let me clap for this one and move on. But since then, I mean, there's been a lot of comma moments. I've been calling them the D's, really, to be honest with you. About a year and a half ago, my mom started to really forget things. After she started to really forget things, we started to realize that it was dementia beginning to set in. And I don't know if you've ever dealt with somebody who's had Alzheimer's in your family. I don't know if you've ever dealt with dementia, but about 5 months into my mom dealing with her dementia, we got to a place where every day she'd wake up and for hours and hours, she couldn't recognize who we were. when you begin to forget little things and the pieces don't connect in your mind, fear and panic begins to come in. And when that came in, we would have sleepless night after night after night. I would have so many nights where I would just go and sit with my mother, and as she was looking at me, she would slap me and hit me and say, "I hate you, who are you?" And I would go, "Mom, it's your son, it's your son, it's your son." My dad is a military man who grew up, you know, being this tough, macho guy. And my dad speaks 7 languages fluently. Everything he touches turns into financial gold. He is Mr. Clutch, but he was watching his wife fall apart. And soon, in the middle of my mom's dementia, depression started to take hold of my dad. And when depression started to take hold of my dad, some people, when they get depressed, they kind of implode, and some people explode. They lash out. My dad is the lash out kind, and he just started this destructive activity of just getting mad and angry at anybody that couldn't help, because he couldn't help. And I remember going through my mom's dementia, and I remember going through my dad's depression and thinking, wow, this is a lot of stuff that's going on in our lives. And then my brother Benjamin, who's Down syndrome and the sweetest kid in the world, started having stomach problems. We take him to the doctor, and they come back and say, we're going to do some x-rays just to make sure. X-rays turn into MRIs, and the next thing you know, it was a tumor, fist-sized tumor, that they said might take his life. And then we had a disease to deal with. That's why we called them the D's in the last year and a half. And so I had my father in depression, I had my mother in dementia, and I had my brother in the midst of cancer. And then my mom gets worse and worse and worse. And in the middle of all of that, my sister calls me one day, and she said, you know how you've been calling them the D's? Guess what? My husband just handed me divorce papers. And everything in my life, I remember everything in my life had gone from this still moment to the storm was beginning to brew. And in the middle of all of that, all of a sudden, I run into this passage that I preached for years and years and years. Just went through the comma. And I remember all of a sudden God going, you need this comma. And that's why I have predestined it right here for you. Because I remember thinking, are you kidding me, God? In the middle of all of this, you want me to say to you, yes, Lord, I'm obedient to you. I will not fear. This is a command from you. How do I not find myself afraid? And the answer is on the other side of the comma. The answer is there. Because God says, do not fear, comma, but then he gives us the reason why not to be afraid right after the comma. When I was in the 6th grade, I had this friend. His name was Corbett Shelton. He didn't become my friend until later on. The first half of the 6th grade year, he was like the kid that beat me up every day after school. I was basically a wedgie waiting to happen, all right? So I know you look at me now and you're thinking, surely with all this is, by the way, this is all natural, no creatine, all right? But I don't know, it's not even funny. But you know what I'm saying? So back then in the 6th grade, it was just pathetic. And Corbett, y'all, wasn't even the bully of our school. He was like the biggest wimp in our school, but I was the one guy below him in the food chain, you know? So every day Corbett would get beat up, then he'd come looking for me to detox. And I remember he beat me up every day, And one day after school, I went home after getting pretty roughed up by Corbett. And I was just crying in my room, and my dad came in, and like I said, he's a military man from Iran, you know, so he walks in, and he's like, what is wrong? He doesn't like anybody crying. And I was like, Dad, this kid named Corbett beats me up every day after school, and I don't like it here. And my dad looked right at me, and he said this to me. He goes, tomorrow after school, I'll be waiting for him in the front. And I remember thinking this all day long. I remember all day long, that next day, walking around my 6th grade classes going, today after school, my dad is going to jack slap another 6th grader. And we're fitting to get sued. And this is going to be awesome. You know, and so after school, I got out, and my dad, I kid you not, Mark, my dad was parked in front of the school where the buses are, you know? And it's Buick Regal diesel, all right? So he's sitting there. The ladies are like, sir, you got to move the bus. He's like, me no speak English. You know, he just kind of parked. And, you know, he's just sitting there. He won't move. And I ran out of the front. And as soon as I ran in the front, you know, I saw my dad, and I thought, this is what he meant. He's going to protect me. So I went and I got in the car, in the passenger seat in the front. And as soon as I got in the car, my dad looked at me, and he goes, no, get out of the car and wait for him outside. So I was like, Dad, he's going to come. He goes, that's what they say. Good. That's how we talk, you know. And so, that's not funny. All right? Yes, it is. Anyway, so I get out of the car, and I'm standing in front, you know, and I'll never forget, Corbett comes out of the front doors. And as soon as he came out, y'all, he saw me, and his backpack is falling off as he's starting to run. And this was our typical protocol. Normally, that's what would happen, and then I would start to run, and then he'd get me away from everybody else so he could rough me up. But I know in the back of his mind, he was thinking, why isn't this guy running? Because instead of running, I stood my ground.